Still looking at me.
And what's up, ladies and gentlemen? How you doing? It's your boy, the Multitasker, and welcome back again to another reaction video. Don't you hate it when you step into the locker room and you're getting a lot of a stink eye look at you? Probably like 5 or 10 guys that just wanted to tear the living shit out of you, whether you are a babyface or a heel turn. That's just how business is. And I have a new request from Shadow, and it looks like he wants me to react of 18 WWE wrestlers that were hated in the locker room. Ouch. And also, can you believe that Tessa has been slapped with a $100,000 fine from Impact, even though that she was fired from the business? Yeah, I don't know what to say, really, because if you think that she was in trouble with the whole racial scandal, this is going to be even much more heavier than what it is. So, yeah. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started. So, without further ado, it's time to react.
We are Wrestling Hub, and today we are talking about hated WWE wrestlers in the locker room. The Miz was never going to have an easy time in wrestling, entering the sport at a time when everyone was coming from school, developmental promotions, or even the independents. The Miz joined as a reality TV star after his appearances on MTV. Even though he was initially signed as a host of the Diva Search, he did start wrestling and it wasn't easy for him to be accepted. The Miz made the error in judgment when he decided to eat chicken near the bag of Chris Benoit, who then proceeded to kick The Miz out of the locker room for 6 months and made him change into his gear in public washrooms. The Miz was treated horribly by everyone in the locker room and was a jobber on the show. CM Punk once stated that if everyone in the locker room could have beat up The Miz, they would have. This evidently never slowed The Miz down because he got his career on track and even became WWE champion. He also did something CM Punk never did, and that is main event WrestleMania. Wonder who is better off today. Michael started off his journey by gaining absolute hate for himself when he first joined the WWE with Marty Jannetty in 1987. He was fired in less than a week and was told by Vince that those boots are meant for walking. Shawn also believes that his work inside the ring saved him from getting fired after he was rehired. Michaels was also off the rails as a single star. He was an addict and also was the biggest presence backstage. He would bully younger talent, mistreat his own friends, and treat everyone else like they were dirt. His backstage politics didn't help the matter even slightly, as he gave people heat by proximity, primarily Triple H. Even though he was a perfectly functional wrestler within the ropes, he was a lunatic backstage. His relentless attacks on his boss, co-workers, and friends garnered him a horrible reputation. Michael Cole has gone on record saying he absolutely hated him and never believed in him. It is a miracle that Michaels dug himself out of this hole and is able to be considered one of the greatest of all time. Batista will never come off as a diva nowadays. He seems like a humble guy, despite the box office success he has become after his appearances in blockbuster films like the Guardians of the Galaxy and later appearances in the Avengers films. Batista is not only a successful Hollywood actor, he was an extremely gifted wrestler before making the jump, having won the World Heavyweight title 4 times, the WWE title twice, among a few tag team title reigns. Batista, with the success he has, should have been a locker room leader, right? Well, he wasn't. At the time Batista was getting all of this success, he was still trying to grow in stature backstage on SmackDown, with the likes of Booker T, JBL, Undertaker, Chris Benoit ahead of him in that regard. However, the up-and-coming Batista wanted the same respect and started to throw his weight around, which caused the elders to get upset, and allegedly caused Booker T to attack him backstage. His 2014 return seemed to have pissed off the locker room members too, because he threw around his Hollywood credentials to them. Sometimes a bad attitude can never be forgotten or looked past. Muhammad Hassan at some point in 2005 was easily the hottest character on TV. It was very politically tone deaf, but everyone was eating it up, and Hassan was slated for a big push. But as we saw with Batista, and we'll see again later in the list, pushing young stars straight out the gate might not be the best idea. Hassan got quite a few stupid ideas when he decided to go through with them. He was bound to be hated. He was so hated that he was fired, not because of his terrorist persona and a poorly timed terrorist angle, but because no one backstage wanted him to stick around. Hassan's biggest mistake backstage was when he asked locker room leader and easily the most liked and respected person, Eddie Guerrero, to stop using the camel clutch. The two issues with this request was that first, you never ask an elder to do something like that. Secondly, the move was invented by Gory Guerrero. Once when Hassan bought the entire locker room drinks at a bar, everyone looked at Hassan and poured their drinks out on the floor. He was fired in 2005 and no one missed him for a second. CM Punk, in his 8-year tenure with the WWE, had to overcome a lot. One of the prime things he had to overcome was intense dislike backstage from his days in developmental to the very final day in the company. CM Punk is a righteous man who believes in what he says, and he is also a free thinker. Punk's saga with Heat started when he disrespected legends backstage whenever they asked questions about his character, to which Punk would react with annoyance and exasperation if anyone didn't understand what he meant. After that, Punk had to overcome a lot on the main roster too. Punk never went out for drinks with the boys because, you know, straight edge, but that caused a rift. He is known to be a condescending and very private person, which rubbed everyone the wrong way. Kevin Nash once said that he almost ended up beating Punk up. Chris Jericho told a story about how people backstage wouldn't take orders from Punk, as Punk would ask people to clean the locker room as he was the locker room leader in his own mind, and this pissed off Booker T, as he just responded by saying, "You're no leader of me." Yikes. JBL has always been a straight-talking Southern man. He may have assumed a position of leadership backstage and definitely was considered as one of the leaders, but he was never truly liked. When he was Bradshaw, he was a part of the locker room, but his push in 2004 really caused heads to turn. Bradshaw had become JBL and he started throwing his weight around after getting a new push. Now, the elders probably didn't hate JBL, but the young wrestlers on the roster surely did. JBL would allegedly bully wrestlers backstage, be it light hazing or actually demeaning them. He was a part of the infamous Wrestler's Court, and he would dole out punishments, which would usually have something to do with buying him alcohol. He went rogue on a fellow wrestler, the Blue Meanie, in 2004, and even his attempts at bullying Mauro Ranallo out of the company really hurt his backstage relations. He is a locker room general and one of the longest tenured full-time wrestlers still on the books. People from his era or the previous one have assumed part-time roles in the company or have retired. He has been a constant presence in the locker room and is surely becoming a mentor for the newer talents. Not too long ago, however, Orton was the younger talent in the roster, and his early on-screen push may have gotten to his head. Orton is a self-admitted jerk from the years of 2004 to 2006, in which he primarily bullied divas and threw his weight around. There are DVDs on him which have discussed this issue. Orton was an out-of-control youngster who was smoking weed and drinking alcohol like there was no tomorrow. He got busted for violating the wellness policy and almost got sued for harassing writers and rookie divas. He was hated, but seemingly has calmed down now, especially after becoming a father and Triple H asking him how long he will use his age as an excuse for his behavior. There are two schools of thought with regards to how the Ultimate Warrior should be remembered. One school wants to remember him as the massive star he was, and the other wants everyone to know the horrible man that Jim Hellwig was. WWE have experimented with both sides with a 2005 DVD titled The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, and also naming a Hall of Fame award after him. However, the stories about Warrior explain why he was so hated and why he had to go out of his way to mend fences before his death in 2014. Warrior had a monster ego. His ego was on the level of Hulk Hogan, but he didn't have the same tenure or lineage. Warrior would constantly injure wrestlers and be unapologetic about it. He wouldn't change his boring wrestling style, nor would he try and make up for his mistakes. He once refused to meet a dying fan, such was his disregard for everything not related to him. Reports claim that Vince was extremely happy to fire him when he did. It's a sad tale for the Warrior, but he seemed to have redeemed himself prior to his death. Lex was one of those guys that never meant to join the business but stumbled upon it and decided to make a big payday. Anyway, being despised for not having a passion for the business as he parlayed in for American football, Luger had tremendous ego issues backstage. They were so bad that he once got into a fight with close friend Steve Borden, better known as Sting. Eric Bischoff has stated that he never wanted to sign the man because he knew his reputation, and Luger is also blamed for ruining Miss Elizabeth's life. Just like Shawn Michaels before him, Luger found religion and was a born-again Christian. This did help clear tension, but Luger did generate a fair amount of noise about himself. Hunico had backstage beef of another level. Before going into detail, Hunico Sin Cara has a 5-0 record in backstage fistfights. The biggest problem with Cara was that he tends to work fights in the ring with an aggressive style and genuinely hitting wrestlers in the ring. He said that he has gotten into fights and arguments with the likes of Simon Gotch, Sheamus, and even Chris Jericho. Sheamus is one hard man, as we can see in his Celtic Warrior workout videos, and Chris Jericho once beat Goldberg in a backstage fight. Sin Cara may not be the best person to mess with, but he's also someone who will struggle to win the respect of his peers. Buff Bagwell was one of those rare superstars that could have come over from WCW after the end of the Monday Night Wars and been somewhat of a star on WWE programming. He had given WWE respect as he chose to opt out of his guaranteed WCW money and signed a contract with the company to appear before he needed to. Despite that, Buff could never win anyone over backstage because of his ginormous ego. He once got slapped by Ernest Miller in WCW, but that wasn't even the worst to happen to the egomaniac Buff. He was constantly late for WWE events and would fake injuries to get out of matches. He fought with Shane Helms, had his mother call the WWE and ask for time off, and then proceeded to have the worst work match in TV history against Booker T, which killed his career completely. Hogan could have written the book on being hated backstage, regardless of the era he was wrestling in. Hogan was the top star of the WWE through the 80s, and he really worked hard on keeping that spot. He buried talent and undersold everyone, so this kind of rubbed people the wrong way. Hogan was horrible at doing business, as he would constantly refuse to lose to certain wrestlers. Mr. Perfect, Shawn Michaels, and Ric Flair would attest to this. Even when he gave Ultimate Warrior a win at Mania, Hogan kicked out after the 3 count to make Warrior look like he won out of luck. After his racism scandal, Hogan was not accepted back into the WWE locker room by the black superstars, as he showed no remorse for his actions, but feeling sorry that he got caught saying that. Hogan hasn't had the smoothest of rides backstage, but he has millions of dollars to comfort him. Melina was a super talented wrestler in an era when women's wrestling was a joke. She stood with the likes of Beth Phoenix as phenomenal athletes who should be given a brighter spotlight, but regardless of how women were treated backstage at the time, climbing to the absolute top of the business would always be hard for Melina, as she was a heat magnet. Melina was an absolute pain behind the scenes. She fought with multiple fellow wrestlers like Mickie James and Candice Michelle. Along with that, she even once received a tongue lashing by The Undertaker. Add in the rumors that she cheated on her boyfriend John Morrison with Batista, you can see why she is considered to have a bad reputation. Notorious for being the litmus test for WWE rookies, Bob Holly may have been a hard man that helped youngsters toughen up for the business, but his methods often caused severe amounts of backlash. Along with that, Holly was always looking at himself as a bigger star than he actually was. Criticizing many of the decisions to put young stars ahead of him in the pecking order, Holly just came off as a bitter man who was destined to be a mid-carder, even though he imagined himself to be a main eventer. He infamously chopped Daniel Puder into leaving the company at Royal Rumble 2005 and was known to stiff every young wrestler at the time, including Randy Orton and Brock Lesnar. Bruce Pritchard pointed out best on his podcast, where he mocked Holly for asking Vince to put the belt on him. Safe to say, Holly isn't the guy everyone talks about backstage and feels warm and fuzzy towards. Cena was a humble boy from Massachusetts while coming up the business, and he still seems like he hasn't lost touch with that, but 3 cases in his career have really left a sour taste in the mouths of those backstage, even though one was forgiven later. Cena's first mistake was to make the US title a spinner. This incensed many of the veterans, including Bob Holly. The title wasn't a toy, but his merchandise sales meant that even the big title got a makeover, and it lasted for 8 years with that design. While the money he made forgives that, what people still don't forget or forgive are the burials of Alex Riley and the Nexus. Safe to say, none of those wrestlers won a world title, and the most successful Nexus member was the one that didn't lose to Cena, that faded SummerSlam, and it was Daniel Bryan. Triple H is the king of kings, but also the king of backstage controversy, first garnering a bad reputation for himself by virtue of being Shawn Michaels' best friend and a part of the infamous clique with Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, HBK, and X-Pac. The curtain call where all of them apart from X-Pac broke character and hugged in the middle of the ring derailed Triple H's career. Even though he did recover from that, he had to take the flak for being Shawn Michaels' best friend, as everyone went to Hunter every time Michaels made a mistake. Apart from this is the infamous Reign of Terror, which saw Triple H dominate WWE programming on Monday Night Raw between 2002 and 2005. This period includes the burial of Booker T and ruining Goldberg's aura. On top of this, Triple H also married the boss's daughter Stephanie in a move which got him heavily panned backstage, as wrestlers and agents would openly criticize the relationship and accuse Triple H of cheating on Chyna with Stephanie. This is what people attribute to his extended success in the main event. Even though now he is the happy father figure from NXT, Triple H surely had to climb up a mountain to get to the level of respect he has today. Matt Striker currently makes a successful living off of his job as a commentator in various promotions. When he first came to WWE, however, he was a wrestler. He was never the best wrestler, and being young and not too skilled, it might have been a good idea for him to not antagonize senior stars. He was placed on SmackDown, where he began to badmouth it in favor of Raw. He was very brash in his statements. At the time, stars like Chris Benoit, The Undertaker, and Eddie Guerrero were all on SmackDown. They didn't take too kindly to this attitude and let him know by kicking him out of the locker room. Enzo Amore was fired by WWE as soon as news surfaced that he had been hiding the fact that he was under investigation for sexual assault. Once it became public knowledge, WWE was quick to remove him, vacating the Cruiserweight title. Enzo was already disliked by the backstage stars and everyone else that came into contact with him. They didn't treat him kindly, naturally, and given the sort of ego that Enzo has in real life, it is highly unlikely that he will ever be coming back to the company, at least anytime soon. And these were stars that had poor backstage reputations. I hope you're all having an amazing day. Be sure to subscribe, and I will see you later in the next video.
Wow. I guess that's the real term of being hated in the locker room. So, reframe of what I said from the beginning, because I guess when it comes to uprising and being as a young athlete, I guess things can get a little bit hazy in the backstage. Especially if you have a massive ego or narcissistic and you don't apologize. Well, that will be considered, that's going to be an issue, and you probably will going to get shit on by everybody that wants to make an example out of you. That's something I'm not sure if I'm qualified to be in the wrestling business, even though I do used to wrestle back in high school, but that's something I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. I don't think so. But as far as for Enzo Amore, I seriously doubt that there isn't going to be a comeback unless he's going to try to sneak his way in, because I know it happened before, because it's already shown that. I'm pretty sure they just deleted it because WWE does not want to do with Enzo. So yeah, now I get the idea of the title of it. Jesus Christ, harsh. Well, I think that's it for right now, so I am going to go ahead and wrap this up. If you enjoyed this, let's leave it a like and also leave a comment down below, and I'll catch y'all in the next video. So peace out, everyone, and good night.